This conference will now be recorded.
Hope everyone can hear me. Just you can put a message if you can hear me. Yeah, hope everyone can hear me now. I got the information that you are not hearing me. I hope everyone can hear me now. Please tell me. If not, please tell me. If you are not able to hear me, please tell me. Okay, so I'm hoping that everyone can hear me now. Okay, thank you. Okay, so program. So program is a set of instructions along with the data considered as input. Okay, so considered as input. So whenever I'm talking about a program here, so program is nothing but a set of instructions along with the data considered as input, so that are to be processed, to give the output, okay, so to give the output. So basic understanding of this is like every programmer in the world. Okay, so this program definition is not only for Python, so it is also for the other programming languages. Okay, so here this is input basically. Okay, so input, what input will contain? Input will contain instructions plus the data. Okay, so input will contain instructions plus the data. So this instructions plus the data must be processed. Okay, so must be processed. Okay, so processed. So how it will process, so it will process by applying the logic. Okay, so once you apply the logic, then only the inputs are processed. Okay, so then only the inputs are processed, and then you will get the output. Okay, so then you will get the output. So what is output for me? Output is nothing but the information. Output is nothing but the information. So if I have to give you a simple example, I'll say add 4 comma 3. So this 4 and 3 will get added and you will get 7. So this 7 is called as the information. Okay, okay, so now we will talk about a Python program. Okay, so we'll talk about Python programming. So now, uh, what is a Python program? So program is all about set of instructions along with the data which we consider as input that are to be processed to give the output. So this is the common definition for all the things. Okay, so now if I tell you about Python programming and if I have to define a Python programming for you, so if I say a Python program, a programming language. So what is Python programming? A programming language used for, so a programming language used for developing the programs. Use it for what? Use it for developing the programs to solve. Okay, so to solve simple to complex problems. Okay, so simple to complex problems. Okay, so complex problems. So the simple problem can be a simple addition of two numbers, and the complex of the complex program can be a big web application or product based application and all. Okay, so so Python programming is helpful for developing many programs. Okay, so developing many programs to solve the simple to complex problems basically. Okay, so the idea of a Python program is to develop a program which will help us to solve some simple to complex problems. Okay, right. So when you ask me what is the uh, biggest thing about Python programming, how it is easy, I mean, how it is going to be easily understood by the programmer and all. So it is, okay, so it is, uh, okay, so we will be talking about the features here. So whenever I'm talking about the features, the first and foremost feature is it is simple and easy to develop. Okay, so simple and easy to develop. Okay, so it is very simple, very easy. For example, if I am writing a program for adding two numbers, okay, if I'm writing a program for adding two numbers, so I can simply use a is equal to 5, b is equal to 3, and I can write something like print of a plus b over. Okay, so to give you a clear indication of how simple and easy programming language Python is going to be. Okay, so you don't require any extra knowledge to understand. So you can be of any background, like you can be of EC background, CSE, I mean CSE background, IT background, anyhow you can code. But other background people like civil people, mechanical people, like ECE, okay, so triple E people, so any diploma, degree, anyone can easily understand this programming language. Okay, so it is not at all a tough programming language. Okay, so that is how simple it is going to be. So we will get to know slowly but surely how easy and simple it is going to be. Okay, so we will talk about the next one, which is object oriented programming language. Okay, whenever I'm saying language is going to be OOP, so it is totally based on the language, or the programming language for that matter, so which is completely based on, okay, so which is completely based on two programming concepts. Okay, so two programming concepts. First one is going to be a class, second one is going to be an object. Okay, so first one is going to be a class and the second one is going to be an object. Okay, so object oriented programming language, OOP, so the language which is completely based on two programming concepts, class and object. So whenever I'm saying class is nothing but some logical entity. Now for example, if I am saying example, I'll say, so here the phi is going to be the object and phi belongs to which class? Int class. Okay, so here I can say, so phi belongs to int class. So phi belongs to which class? Int class. Okay, so like this, int is going to be a class and phi is going to be an object. Okay, so always remember this particular point. Okay, so the 5, the numeric value 5 is said to be an int object here. Is said to be an int object. So like this, there are many objects. Now, for example, I'll say hello. So hello is going to be str object. Okay, so str is a class. Hello is a object. Hello is a object. Now, for example, if I'm saying 4.35, so these are all the data values. So this is an object of the, so this is an object of the float class. Okay, so object of the float class. So what is 4.35? 4.35 is an object of the float class. Object of the float class. So in this way, we are going to deal with, okay, so we are going to deal with object oriented programming. So there are many other principles of object oriented programming, so we will come to know that. Okay, so in the third features that we are, so this is a big concept actually. This is a big concept. When we go into the details, we will learn it more, more and more with more and more examples also. Okay, so for now, the concept of object oriented programming is like limited. Okay, so now the programming language is completely based on class and object. So what is class, what is object, how can we create the class, how can we create the object, so that you can definitely understand later. So for now you are going to understand the next feature, which is going to be robust. Okay, so robust. Okay, so what is the next feature here? So robust means strong. Okay, so robust means strong. So Python, being an object oriented programming language, it is also a strong programming language. Okay, so it is a strong programming language. Okay, so it has, so why it is strong, so why we call this particular Python programming as a strong programming language? Because uh, it has the features like, okay, so it has the features like, so robust means strong, it has the features like, okay, so it has the features like uh, exception handling. So as it contains a feature like exception handling, okay, so it is considered to be strong. Okay, it is considered to be exception handling. Okay, so features like exception handling, memory management. Okay, so memory management, so these kind of things. Okay, so as they as Python will support these concepts, we call it as robust. Robust means strong. Okay, now we will try and understand what is exception handling. But before going into the exception handling, we will talk about error. Okay, so we'll talk about error. Okay, so error in the program are quite common. Okay, errors in the program are quite common. Okay, so now I just wrote a program on addition. Okay, let me run that program. So where I'm running and all, you don't worry. So I will just say a is equal to 5, b is equal to 3, and I'm saying print a plus b. Okay, so this is the program that I am running, and you are getting the answer as 8. Okay, so you are getting the answer as 8. Okay, so a, what is a, what is 5? Okay, 5 and 3 are objects, I told, right? So what kind of objects they are? Int objects. Okay, so what is this print, and what are the other things we will understand in our first program activation. So for now, you just don't worry about all those things. So just worry about how we can write the program. Okay, so how we can write the program, take the inputs, process the inputs, and print the outputs. Okay, so take the inputs, process the inputs, and take the output. Okay, so and print the output. So that's what the major idea here. Every programming performs IPO basically. IPO means input, processing, and output. So IPO means input, processing, and the output. Okay, so now if you look at this here, now there will be some errors when you are not doing the program in the system intended manner. If the system is saying you, uh, so I'll try to use Telugu also here and there. So errors ante. So whenever we talk about the Errors in programming. So errors are the mistakes. Okay. So what are errors? Errors are the mistakes. So I'll use very simple English. Don't worry. So, but in the middle Telugulo kuda నేను చెప్తుంటాను. Don't worry about that also. So an error is a mistake. Okay. So the most common thing in programming is going to be an error. Okay. So error is the most common thing. So when you are freshly learning, okay. So when you are freshly learning anything, okay. So when you are freshly learning anything, so the errors will be very common. Okay, so errors will be very common. So whenever we talk about the errors here, errors are the most common things, as I've told you. So when I am talking about the error, I'll say it's a mistake. An error is a mistake. Error is a mistake that takes place in the program. Error is a mistake that takes place in the program expectedly. Okay, so or I'll say intentionally or unintentionally. Intentionally or unintentionally. So error is a mistake that takes place in the program intentionally or unintentionally. Okay. So whenever we are talking about the errors, an error is a mistake that takes place in the program intentionally or unintentionally. Okay. So it is not like every time I will make the mistake by knowing. So sometimes I might be making mistake without knowing also. Okay. So that is why error understanding is very important. So error is what? Error is a mistake. So what it does? It will take place when the in the program. So with your choice or without your choice also. So it is not like wantedly we will write the error or anything like that. So sometimes we can say that, so I got the errors unintentionally, so I don't want the errors in my program, but still I am getting it. Okay, so still I am getting it. So why it is, how it is, and all we will try and understand. So whenever I am talking about the errors are the mistakes. Okay, in programming. Okay, so in programming we may face three types of error. Okay, so in programming we may face three types of errors. Okay, so we may face three types of errors. Always remember this fact. Okay, so in programming, so I'm not only talking about Python programming here. Remember, I'm talking about all the programming languages in the world. Okay, what are the three common things that we may face, or what are the three types of errors that we may face? So first one is going to be a syntax error. Okay, so first one is going to be a syntax error. Second one is going to be a runtime error. Okay, so first one is going to be which error? Syntax error. So first one syntax error అవుతుంది. ఎర్రర్ అనేది ఒక మిస్టేక్, మన ప్రోగ్రాంలో చేసే ఒక మిస్టేక్. సో ఆ మిస్టేక్ మనం కావాలని చేయొచ్చు, అనుకోకుండా కూడా అవ్వచ్చు. సో కావాలని చేసిన మిస్టేక్స్ ఉంటాయి, అనుకోకుండా చేసిన మిస్టేక్స్ కూడా ఉంటాయి. సో ఎర్రర్ అనేది ఒక మిస్టేక్, సో విచ్ విల్ టేక్ ప్లేస్ ప్రోగ్రాంలో. కావాలని రావచ్చు, మనం అనుకోకుండా కూడా రావచ్చు. కావాలని ఎవరు చేస్తారు సార్ అంటే నేనున్నా. So because I am a trainer, okay, so I am a trainer by profession, I have to show the errors to the people. Okay, so that is why I'll do it intentionally. Okay, so after you start working in the software industry, so you might not be doing that intentionally, but as a trainer I have to do some errors intentionally also. Okay, so why? Because I need to show. So if you do this ఇలాంటి చేస్తే you will get that type of ఎర్రర్స్. ఓకే, సో ఇలాంటివి చేస్తే ఇలాంటి టైప్ ఆఫ్ ఎర్రర్స్ వస్తాయి. సో యువర్ ప్రోగ్రామ్ విల్ బి స్టాప్డ్ అట్లా. ఓకే, సో దెన్ వీ హ్యావ్ త్రీ టైప్స్ ఆఫ్ ఎర్రర్స్. ఓకే, సో త్రీ టైప్స్ ఆఫ్ ఎర్రర్స్. సో ఫస్ట్ వన్ ఈజ్ గోయింగ్ టు బి the syntax error. Okay, so first one is going to be syntax error. Second one is going to be the runtime error, and the third one is going to be a logical error. So many of the people just talk about these two only, but I always feel that this one is also important. Okay, so why I will feel like that, I'll let you know. So whenever we are talking about the errors are the mistakes that takes place in the program intentionally or unintentionally. So intentionally you do, okay, so or without knowing also you can do it. Okay, so there are three types of errors. So first one is syntax error, second one is runtime error, and the third one is going to be a logical error. So, okay, so first time we talk about the syntax error. Okay, these errors, these errors occur in the program. Okay, so these errors occur in the program when when the programmer is not following, when the programmer is not following the rules and regulations, not following the rules and regulations of the programming. So if uh, you got any syntax error, so you are not following the rules and regulations of the programming. Now for example, so I will say, okay, so instead of a5 I said a5 equal to. Now what is happening here? So you are getting a syntax error. So why you are getting syntax error? Because this is not the rule. This is not the rule that you have to follow. Okay, so you are saying actually it is what? Actually it is a is equal to 5. Okay, so actually it is a is equal to 5. But you wrote something like a5 equal to a5 means you are not following the rules of the programming. As you are not following the rules and regulations of the programming, so you are getting the syntax error. So this line is okay and this line is okay, but why I am getting syntax error? Because it is not according to the rules and regulations of programming. Okay, so rules and regulations of the programming. Okay, now, okay, so we need to understand a little bit about this. If any if any syntax error, syntax error is, okay, so understanding errors is very very important. So if you don't understand the errors in the program, so you cannot move forward into the programming. Okay, so that is why it is very important for us to understand the syntax error. Okay, if any syntax error comes into the program, if any syntax error comes into the program, of course intentionally or unintentionally, the whole program gets stuck, that is, we cannot get any kind of output, cannot get any kind of output. So if any syntax errors occurs in the program, the whole program gets stuck. That is, we cannot get any kind of output. Now, for example, okay, so let's write this line. So a is equal to 5. Okay, and then I will write c is equal to 4, and then I will write something like d is equal to, okay, or else I'll say d phi equal to, same thing I'm writing. So now I'm saying a plus b plus c plus d. Okay, now what will happen? Now if you observe here, okay, let me close this. Now, okay, for example, if I'm just saying a is equal to 5, a is equal to 3, I will get a and b created. Okay, but if you observe here, so there is a mistake here. Okay, and I'm running the whole code, but you see that no other data is going here. Okay, so no other data is going here. So why no other data is going here? Because we have a error here. So we have a error, as we have the syntax error over there. So invalid syntax means you are not following the rules and the regulations. So invalid syntax means d5 is not the one which can be declared like this. So you should have a value here. You should have a value, or else it should be some d is equal to 5. So according to the pattern, if you go, it is actually d is equal to 5. But d5 equal to means it is missing some value. It is missing some value. So that is why you are getting a syntax error. Means you need to follow the rules and regulations of the programming. So if you do not follow, what happens? It will give you a syntax error. And one more thing here, so there is nothing wrong with a, b and c here, but as you observe, we did not create a, b, c. I'm running the whole program. I'm running the whole program, but a is equal to 5, b is equal to 3, c is equal to 4 are correct. So there is no error or anything, but there is no memory allocated. There is no memory allocated to a, b, and c. Why? Because so we have an error here. We have an error here. So as we have an error there, so it is not possible to work with any code. It is not possible to work with any code. So the code a is equal to 5, b is equal to 3, c is equal to 4. These are okay codes. This does not have any problem. But who is the problem here? The problem is d5 is equal to. So what is d5 is equal to here? d5 is equal to is going to be a syntax error. Okay, so you are getting a syntax error in this fashion. Okay, so you're getting syntax error in this fashion. So whenever I am trying to talk about the syntax error is nothing but the error which has come up when the program is written, and the error that will come up when you don't follow the rules and regulations of the program. For every programming, there will be some rules and regulations. Okay, so there will be some rules and regulations. Okay, so you can talk about those rules and regulations. Okay, so in the future classes. Okay, so right now I just gave you one rule, but later on we will be understanding more and more. Okay, right. So now let us talk about the next type of error, which is going to be a runtime error. Okay, so it is going to be a runtime error. So runtime errors, or we can also call them as exceptions. Okay, right. So what happens when you get a syntax error? No line. Okay, so no line will get executed. So now let us understand what happens with runtime errors or exception. Okay, so these are the type of errors. So these are the type of errors that okay, so these are the type of the errors that will get generated at the runtime. Generate the runtime when the system do not understand. Okay, so where the system do not understand what output might be given. So what output might be given? What output might be given? Okay, so what I'm trying to say here is, now whenever you're talking about the runtime error or the exception, these are the types of errors that will get generated at the runtime. The system do not understand what output might be given. A classic scenario I will give you, a very classic scenario. So dividing a number by 0. Dividing a number by 0. So what you are doing here, you are dividing a number by 0. Number by 0. Okay, so what you are doing here, you are dividing a number by 0. Okay, so how generally we do this? Now, for example, dividing two numbers. Okay, so first of all, dividing two numbers, so non-zero. Okay, so dividing two non-zeros. Okay, dividing two non-zeros. Okay, so when you are trying to divide two non-zeros, now for example, a is equal to 5, b is equal to 3, and then okay, okay, so this is the answer for this. Okay, super. And then here I'll say b by a. Okay, so this is also fine. Okay, so b by a. So here you are getting 0.6. Fine, absolutely fine up to here. So this is how you do uh, the division. Okay, so between two non-zeros, between two non-zeros. Okay, now for example, I have, let's say, okay, so I have the okay, so whenever I'm talking about this division, so I have a denominator 0. I have a denominator 0. So denominator 0 in the sense, so denominator 0 in the sense, in this place I will put a 0. In this place I will put a 0. So now if you observe, we are getting the exception. We are getting the exception. So now here it is not a problem because you are dividing 0 by 5. Okay, so 0 by 5 obviously will be 0. Okay, so 0 by 5 obviously will be 0. But here what it is? It is the exception, or you can say the runtime error. So it is known as what? It is known as the exception or the runtime error. So here not a problem. Okay, so you are dividing by two non-zeros, not at all a problem. So dividing by, okay, let me uh, put the point here. So dividing a non-zero, a non-zero with 0. Non-zero with 0. So you are dividing a non-zero by 0. So you are trying to say 5 by 0. So 5 by 0, you are extracting the exception. Who is zero division error here? Zero division error is nothing but the exception or the runtime error or the runtime error. So here there won't be any problem because B is going top, no? B is going top and a is going down as a denominator. So here there is no issue at all. Okay, so there is no issue at all. Okay, so in this way you are dividing. Okay, so you are dividing a non-zero with 0 and dividing a 0 with a non-zero. Okay, so with a non-zero. Okay, so in this way you are working out with the division. Okay, so with the division or with the multiplication or with subtraction or anything. Okay, so this is zero division error. Okay, and what you observe over here is after the error, so there is nothing is getting executed. Okay, so this is the error. Okay, so this is the error. Okay, so a by b, here you are finding the error. Okay, but okay, so here you are finding the error, but what we observe here, so we observe that, okay, so what we observe here, so we observe that we have a is equal to 5, b is equal to 0. So we are having some other code. We are having some other code, but after the exception or after the runtime error, no other codes will get run. Okay, so that is the point I want to say. Okay, so let me write a note for this. Okay, so let me write a note for this so that you will understand. So dividing. Okay, so now when you got the syntax error, okay, so when you got the syntax error, let's say 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 9 10 lines are there. Okay, so you got a syntax error in the fourth line. You got a syntax error in the fourth line. Okay, so now as you got the syntax error in the fourth line, it will not say that I will run this and I will stop from here. It won't say that. Okay, so the control of the program, okay, so control of the program stops at 4, stops at 4, because there you got the syntax error, there you got the syntax error, so that is the problem. Okay, now what happens when I get the runtime error? Let's say 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 9 10 lines. Now let's say I got a runtime error over here. So runtime error is also called as exception. So what is the beauty of the exception is it will execute. Okay, so it will execute the before code. So these codes get executed. Okay, so these codes get executed. So those code gets executed, but after the exception, what are you are finding? They will not be executed. They'll not be executed. Okay, so they'll not be executed. So now you might ask me, now, sir, as you are saying that these lines are not getting executed, then what is the use of writing? Okay, let me try to make you understand here. Now, what is the difference between the syntax error and the runtime error? So, syntax error will stop the flow once the execution has come. So, the exception or the runtime error it will not stop. Of course, there are some rules and regulations for that also. Will not stop after the first getting executed. It will stop at, so it will stop at the point of the point where the execution is stopped. Okay, the execution is stopped. So here is the point where the execution is stopped completely. Okay, so stopped completely. So that is a major difference between the syntax error and the runtime error. So what is syntax error, runtime error? So we try and understand here. Runtime errors, runtime errors will not execute, the runtime errors will not execute the codes that are after the exception, that are after the exception or the runtime error or the runtime error or the runtime error. Okay, so runtime errors will not execute the codes that are after the exception or the runtime errors. Okay, so or the runtime errors. So basic idea here is to get the runtime errors. So runtime errors, what the runtime errors will do now? So runtime errors will stop the execution. So when we got that error, first of all, so we got that error when you are dividing a number by 0. Okay, so dividing a number by 0, so you are dividing 5 by 0, so which is mathematically infinity, but here we don't have infinity, but instead of infinity we get the exception. So there are many cases where we get the exception, of course. సో ఎక్సెప్షన్ అనేది చాలా రకాలుగా చాలా చోట్ల యూ కెన్ సి. సో ఎక్సెప్షన్ వచ్చింది అంటే ప్రోగ్రామ్ ఎగ్జిక్యూషన్ స్టాప్ అయిపోతుంది. సింటాక్స్ ఎర్రర్ వచ్చింది అంటే ప్రోగ్రామ్ ఎగ్జిక్యూషన్ స్టాప్ అయిపోతుంది, బట్ ఏది కూడా ఎగ్జిక్యూట్ అవ్వదు. అదే రన్ టైమ్ ఎర్రర్ అయితే సో ఎక్సెప్షన్ వచ్చిన దగ్గర నుంచి ఎగ్జిక్యూట్ అవ్వదు, కానీ ఎక్సెప్షన్ ముందు మాత్రం ఎగ్జిక్యూట్ అయిపోయే ఉంటుంది. ఓకే, సో దట్స్ ద మెయిన్ థింగ్ behind these two. Okay, so behind these two. Okay, so runtime errors, so runtime errors will not execute the code that are after the exception or the runtime error. Okay, so exception or the runtime error. Okay, so that's the point here. Okay, right. So now when we are talking about the runtime errors, okay, so when we're talking about the runtime errors and syntax errors, So we need to make a point here. So the point is the syntax errors, the syntax errors must be corrected. The syntax errors must be corrected. So what we should do with the syntax errors? The syntax errors must be corrected. Must be corrected. Okay, corrected. Whereas the runtime errors must be handled. Okay, so runtime errors, we call it as exceptions also, no? So we call it as exceptions. We call it as exceptions. Okay, the syntax errors must be corrected, whereas the runtime errors or the exceptions must be handled. So why you are going to correct these errors? We are going to correct those errors because if we do not correct, the whole program will not get executed. Okay, and whereas the runtime errors must be handled because so those runtime errors will be making us to go on with the execution, so fourth one will be stopped and it will continue the execution from 5 to 10 also. Okay, so సింపుల్ గా చెప్పాలి అంటే సింటాక్స్ ఎర్రర్స్ ని మనము కరెక్ట్ చేయాలి. ఓకే, సో రన్ టైమ్ ఎర్రర్స్ ని మనము హ్యాండిల్ చేయాలి. సో కరెక్ట్ చేయడం ఎందుకు అంటే ఇది ఒక్కటి కూడా ఎగ్జిక్యూట్ చేయదు కాబట్టి కంపల్సరీగా కరెక్ట్ చేయాలి. హ్యాండిల్ చేయడము అంటే మధ్యలో నుంచి కూడా మనము హ్యాండిల్ చేయొచ్చు. సో 1 2 3 లైన్స్ అయిపోయింది, ఈ ఫోర్త్ లైన్ని మనం హ్యాండిల్ చేయొచ్చు. సో ఈ ఫోర్త్ లైన్ ఎందుకు సార్ హ్యాండిల్ చేయాలి అంటే సో ఫోర్త్ లైన్ మే గివ్ యూ ఎర్రర్. సో ఫోర్త్ లైన్ కంపల్సరీ ఎర్రర్ ఇస్తుందని ఏం లేదు. ఒక నంబర్ 5తో డివైడ్ అవ్వచ్చు, ఒక నంబర్ 6 డివైడ్ అవ్వచ్చు, ఒక నంబర్ 2తో డివైడ్ అవ్వచ్చు, ఎట్లయినా అవ్వచ్చు. కానీ అదే టైంలో ఒక నంబర్ 0తో కూడా డివైడ్ అవ్వచ్చు. ఓకే, సో ఈ టైంలో కానీ ఈ టైంలో కానీ ఈ టైంలో కానీ ఎక్సెప్షన్ అనేది రాదు, కానీ ఈ టైంలో ఎక్సెప్షన్ అనేది వస్తుంది. ఓకే, so at this point you get the exception. This point no exception, this point no exception, and this point no exception. But at this point definitely exception will be coming. Okay, so that's the major thing that we should know as a programmer. So we have to handle the errors here. Okay, right. So this is also again like OOP, it's also a big topic. So this big topic we must have to be dealt with in a different way with examples and all. For now I cannot show you much more examples. Okay, so because conceptual wise you need to know some more things. Okay, right. So next up we will be understanding about the logical errors. Okay, so when I am talking about the logical errors, the errors made in the program logic. Okay, so in the program logic. Okay, the errors made in the programming logic which may give the outputs, give the outputs which may give the outputs which may give the output, but the output is not appropriate. But the output is not appropriate in the sense not suitable. Okay, so appropriate in the sense not suitable. Okay, so not suitable. Okay, so it is not suitable basically. Okay, so it is not matching with what the programmer is expecting. Okay, so programmer is expecting something and the output is something. Okay, output is something. So in that way you see the logical errors. Okay, so whenever I'm talking about the logical error over here, so logical error comes when your program is doing a mistake. Now for example I'll tell you a simple example. Double the value of the data. Okay, so double the value of the data. Okay, or I can say variable. Okay, so what is variable? Which will hold the data. Okay, so variable is nothing but which will hold the data. Now for example if I'm saying let's say simple example, Okay, so very simple example. Now for example, if I am saying a is equal to 5, so what is the intention here? The intention is double the value of a variable. Okay, fine. Now for example, if you are writing print of 2 into a, you are doubling the output, but you are doubling the output, but the value of a remains the same. The value of a remains the same. So but what was our question? Our question was, okay, so what was our question here? So our question was double the value of the variable. So double the value of the variable in the sense, okay, so here a is 5. So print 2 into a. So means what you are printing here? You are printing 2 into 5, which is nothing but 10. Okay, fine. Fine with that output. Okay, fine with that output. Okay, so so fine with that output. So now what we are looking at here? So we are looking at 2 into 5, 10. So then I am saying, okay, so I'm saying, so 2 into 5, 10. So if I'm saying print of a, okay, so print of a, so you are printing that 5. You're not printing 10. Why? Because 10 is not stored into a. Okay, so it's a logical mistake. It's a logical mistake or a logical error. Okay, then how this might be correct? How this might be correct? This might be correct when you say a is equal to 2 into a. Okay, so this is said to be a logical error. Okay, so this is said to be a what? Just a simple example I'm showing. Okay, so this is correct output. So that is logical error. Why logical error? Because you are increasing the value, but you are only displaying it, but you are not changing the value of a. Okay, so that's the point here. Okay, a is equal to 2 into a, and then if I am writing print of a, now what you observe? You observe that the value of a has become 10. So the value of a has become 10. Okay, so this is about the logical error. Okay, so logical error means the programmer has to understand. Okay, so programmer has to understand. Okay, so programmer has to understand what exactly going to do with the program. Okay, so now for example a is equal to 5. Now with this what I'm doing, I'm saying a is equal to 2 into a, means 2 into 5 value should go and sit in a. Okay, means so this should become 10, and you are printing a means you will get the latest value of the a. Okay, so this is how we deal with the errors. Okay, so in short, okay, in short we will have the syntax errors, runtime errors, and the logical errors. So to give you the last thing here, sir, what is the percentage of syntax errors or runtime errors or logical errors in my program, sir? Now, when you are a fresher, okay, so when you are a fresher learning programming for the first time, okay, so for a fresher, I will say, so you will get 95% syntax errors, okay, and you forget about uh, the other 5% because you will get most of the time syntax errors. Your program will not run at all. Okay, anyway, I will give 4% for this and 1% for this. Okay, so as a fresher when you are learning, so when you like after 15-20 days, your syntax errors, once you learn the logic, okay, so once you learn the logic, I mean once you learn the syntax and all, so I will say 50% you will get this. Okay, and 40% you will get this, like this is after 15 days I'm saying. Okay, let's say after 20 days. Okay, so once you have the programming knowledge and all, okay, so now you will get this like 10%. Okay, now after or half of the course, so you will not be getting any syntax errors. Okay, so 5%, that is also like you are getting confused with some topic or something, and you will get, okay, you will get 10% runtime errors and 85% of logical errors. So in the real time what happens, sir? In the real time, this you won't get anything because you already know how to put the code and all. So this will be 5% and this will be 95%. See, when you started as a fresher, syntax errors were 95%, and when you are in real time, you will get 95% of the logical. Okay, so logical errors. So logical errors are very, very, very uh, uh, important here. Why I am saying like that? Because you will get the output, but you will not get what your intention output is. Okay, so we look into more of these kind of interesting things when we go into the middle of the course and all. Okay, so hopefully everyone understood today's session. So anyone who did not understand or anything, you can please let me know. If any doubts, any questions, so you can ask me right now. Okay. Okay. Thank you, everyone. Especially new guys, if you have any doubts, any questions, so you can talk to the front office, so they'll give you an idea what exactly you're expecting and all. Okay. Okay, then thank you. Thank you so much. So we'll meet tomorrow. Thank you.